history teacher, so I teach on the high school level. But I figured I would share what I know about infusing curricula in what we do every day. And you may not know, and this is important, the intersectionality of what LGBTQ is, as well as Amistad, as well as Holocaust, as well as all of these individual things. It is a combined effort of somebody teaching certain strengths, certain points. I know students were talking, and I was extremely moved, really moved, but I was extremely moved by their passion. They were extremely passionate about this woman who has really touched them. And I think you have to understand what that means. She is not imparting things about, okay, if you're queer, you're going to do X, Y, and Z. She is doing life lessons about understanding, about anti-bullying, not acting as if you are a bigot. All of these things, each of us know, hopefully. And hopefully we employ every single day. What is curious for me, and while I don't know every fact, obviously, is that from what I heard, much of that is not considered, and I hope you will consider it. And since we as civil servants and you as board members, as my superintendent says, I work for them, meaning the students. That's who I work for, and you do as well, and I hope your attitude and when you vote reflects that.
Hi, my name is Krishna Marwala. I'm a parent of Veda Marwala. I live in 135 Mountain Avenue. I just wanted to first thank the board for listening to the community. We really appreciate you on this important matter. I just wanted to sit there and say, as an immigrant coming to this country a long time ago, discrimination, there was only 3 Indian people in my school when I came here growing up in Pittsburgh. And so there was only 3 of them, and actually I was related to one of them, so there was like one other one. And but inclusiveness is really important, that I've learned as a lesson growing up here in America. And one of the big things that my dad always taught me is the ability to sit there and say that we do have First Amendment rights to talk about our expression. And the only way in this democracy that we can actually understand each other is by having a dialogue. And this is one of the biggest things that Veda, when she taught me about the Happiness Committee and all the things that they do, it opens that dialogue. We can only be human by having that dialogue. And that dialogue begins with the First Amendment. And there's also an equal, there's a clause that's done by the Equal Access Right that allows people to form clubs in a public forum such as this. And this is one of the things that allows us to take a look at that. And I'd just like to mention that I feel that our liberties are at stake, and you are at that intersection of those liberties today in this specific area. And I want you to seriously think about the actions that you're going to take a look at. That I understand that there's 3 strikes and you're out in terms of what's going on. But only through education that opens the dialogue, that we as a society does not need to sit there and ask permission for the First Amendment. It is already given to us. And so I just want to conclude that when we look at the action that you're going to put, the action you're going to put for Dr. Mosdale, that it's done in this light, that it preserves the First Amendment, and it also preserves the right for people to form clubs, especially for the LGBT community, as already stated by Eastgate High School's Straight Alliance versus the Board of Education of Salt Lake City putting that act together. So I just want you to be aware of that. And I also think that it was so moving that the students have come for support for that, and to only hear, especially that they have someone to go to, right? I mean, I had very few people that I could go to when I was growing up, and it's amazing to see that this district hires people that take that into account. So we appreciate that, and we hope that you make the right decision. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Stacy Berger, 233 Ellis Parkway. It's been a minute since I've been to a board meeting in person, or, well, actually, yeah, in person or virtually. I think I know most of you. I don't know Dr. Mosdell really at all. I have had like one or two conversations with her, but I think I know all of you, and so it's really shocking to me that we're here. Because whether we've been on the same side of an election or a different side of an election, I believe you all are here because you want to serve these students. That is what this is supposed to be about. I'm honored to be a member of the Board of Education's Culture, Climate, and Community Relations Committee, where I get to work with Ms. Lane, and I just want to read one part of that, part of our mission statement, which we read to make sure that at the beginning of our meetings, to make sure that we're there for the right reasons. One of the it's fairly long, but one of the key parts of our mission statement is to promote a culture of positive and healthy learning within our schools, and to develop the physical climate of our schools, thereby boosting a climate of safety, morale, and pride. I don't know what a teacher could do that would do more than what you have heard from these students and parents tonight. And so whether you are here because you want to make better, safer schools, or you're putting kids first, or you're putting students first, whatever your MO for being here is, I urge you to look inside and think about why you are serving our community. I don't have a student at Shore. I have one student at the high school, which I got to make it through. Anya was talking about APs. We made it through APs. It is really hard for these students, and it has been a very difficult time. And this administration in this school district, I think, has done the best that we could have possibly asked for under very difficult circumstances. And so to see this happening now, when you have come so far and you have done so much, is really just shocking to me. I couldn't believe I had to come here. I really thought that there must have been some kind of mistake, because I couldn't possibly believe that the people I know and respect and admire, and am very glad that you're all here and other people don't have to be, like you all are doing a really good job. So I beg you to look at what you've heard tonight and to consider whether this is the right thing for our district and our whole community.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Hello, my name is Bennett, Bennett. Last name Nagurka, Nagurka. My address is 28 Highland Avenue. So I'll be honest, Dr. Mosdell is a friend of mine for a couple of years now. She was one of the people that encouraged me to go into teaching. This is my first year teaching. I teach 7th and 8th graders. I'm so impressed with the students here, with their commitment, passion, and spending a long night talking to, sorry, not the most exciting group of people to 7th and 8th graders in my experience. So I really think, like, in just a few months of being a teacher, the most important part of the job is building relationships with students and creating a classroom environment where students can find their passions, where they feel like they can raise their voice and fight for the issues that they care about. I think it's really clear to me that Dr. Mosdell, in her capacity, has done this. I think that's a really special space, and I hope that I can be an educator like Dr. Mosdell, and I really think students need this, especially now, having these safe spaces to talk about their lives. Middle school is hard, and Dr. Mosdell definitely makes it easier for those students, and I think that's something everybody here can support. So thank you. Have a good night.
Can I just stop for one more second? If you don't mind, I'd actually like to share the video that was created, if that's possible. Is that allowed? I'd like to show the video that the Happiness Committee made, so you can actually see the work that she's actually done.
We want to see it.
If that's possible? Yes? I just need an
David,
HDMI cable. Okay, thank you. Thank you, we appreciate that, thank you.
Does everything. She wears all the hats.
Sorry, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Did you get the link?
Literally, I'm like tearing up.
Oh, no. It's not available.
It's not available anymore.
Hey, everyone,
Library.
Okay.
The actors are here.
everyone. Misty, back.
Yeah, that's right.
We've got two members that took a bio break, so we'll be.
Let me just check to make sure I typed the link in right then.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak before the board?
Can I ask, when does the vote happen on this? While you,
Madam, this is a public comment section, and we are hearing comments.
Okay. Where did he go? Okay. start? Can we start?
Ben?
Okay. As the previous speaker said, it was very important to have someone for the students to go to, because in sixth grade we barely had somebody to go to at all. And from what I've heard from my peers at Quibble and Kanakamak, it's like they don't have anybody either. And for us to start the happiness committee, it was very like fulfilling for me and my friends to do, because we were the ones who literally made it like start up. And it was like something that we were very proud of ourselves for, because we had nobody else to go to. And for us to like make somebody for other people to go to and for ourselves to talk to, it was like a really great achievement. Even like during regular lunch periods when we didn't have happiness committee meetings, me and my friends would go to her just to talk, because we liked talking to her, because she was a like nice person to talk to. We would talk to her about personal issues, and even when we didn't want to talk to each other, or like we had issues in between the group, she would help us out.
Um, my friends and I, and also others, have gone against decisions of our school. But Dr. Masao has helped us approach it in more peaceful ways. Although we have never let them treat us unfairly, Dr. Masdell made sure we approached it in a way that would be heard, because for a long time, me and my peers have felt unheard. Even the teachers there have said slurs towards us, which made us feel isolated and uncomfortable. But Dr. Masdell has helped us overcome everything that we felt throughout the year and even since the 7th grade.
Dr. Rosdell taught us to treat people better and be more empathetic and see things from other people's like perspectives. We don't know her work life in depth, but the way she helps change people for the better and even helps them. What? Okay, even just helps them like feel better and feel less alone and like isolated is great.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Question. Is this something that we can discuss?
Zoe just asked you questions. She's trying to ask you.
I'd just really quick like to add something to what everybody else said about Dr. Mosdell. It's really short, but I feel like I should say this. But Dr. Mosdell isn't just any teacher that teaches math or history. She teaches us kindness. She teaches us how to be a better human and a person. And she teaches us like how to be not like statistical or analytical, but she teaches us how to use our feelings and use our heart and not just our brain. And that's like all I wanted to say. That's just what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do I have a motion to close? Anyone?
Did you have a question first? Yeah, go ahead.
Discuss this, because I'm told like we're not going to be discussing it, so I just can't sit here and like not discuss this with everyone. Yes. Yeah. When are we going to talk about it?
Well, what I want to say is I want to thank everyone, sincerely thank everyone for your comments and input. And we can't discuss personal matters in public. And let me assure you that being inclusive and being supportive of all of our students is a top priority of the Board of Education. We spend a lot of time thinking about our mission and our goals. We publish them. We act upon them. We have a strategic goal for health and wellness. We take this very seriously, and the public has the right to make comments, and we welcome them. And we thank you for coming out tonight and letting us know how you feel, as someone said, from the heart. And with that, I'm going to ask for a motion to close.
Motion.
I have, no, sorry, I have a question. We're told that this was not something we can be discussed in executive, but we could discuss it in public. And I'm just confused, like, the way this has been communicated and handled, like, I'm just confused.
I will,
We're all
First, I want to thank everybody for coming out. It's late night, folks have been here, and the board has listened attentively. I'm not going to discuss the person involved, but just to give some folks some information about the process that some of you may not be familiar with. And nobody can blame you because it's a process you'd only know if you were familiar with the statutes and the regulations. But the process of non-renewing a certified staff member, when I started practicing law 46 years ago, hard to believe, it was actually the board's decision whether to non-renew somebody. The board actually had to take a vote to non-renew somebody, and it was up to the board. Legislature changed all that, I think it was somewhere in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken, so that the process of non-renewal is dealt with exclusively by the superintendent, at least initially. The board takes no vote on it. The board has no power to take a vote on it. The superintendent makes a decision whether to non-renew or not. An employee who's non-renewed has certain rights. When that happens, I'm not going to spell out what those are. The employee knows what they are. The employee is represented by the New Jersey Education Association, which I can assure you is in a position to advocate for their members. And there's a process that happens after a non-renewal. That process has not even begun to unfold. But tonight, just to eliminate any confusion about it, even if this board wanted to overturn a decision for a non-renewal, and again, I'm not talking about the person, just the process, the board has no legal power to do it. As I said, if a teacher is aggrieved by the superintendent's decision, there's a process, there's certain rights. I think I'll just leave it at that, just to dispel any impression that there's going to be a vote by the board tonight on this.
May I ask a question?
Well, I'm not really going to go further than that, so.
No, that's fine. Is this theater?
What?
If this is what's being said, we're all here in support of our kids. Is this all nothing more than theater, just to play games?
Well, I can respond to that, sir. We don't know what information was given to folks about what was going to happen tonight or what prerogatives the board has. We don't know what folks were told. We don't know what the premise was for folks coming out or what they expected tonight. We're here. There's a public comment session. We're listening. I've made a statement about what the board's limited powers are. So I guess that's a question that folks here will have to answer for themselves.
Mr. Gentleman.
What leverage do you have with the superintendent?
Well, I'm not gonna.
As a board, you're a board, you have some powers. What powers do you have regarding this? If this is the space where the public can speak, then presumably this body then takes what the public is saying and does something with it. How do we get you to weigh in with the superintendent if you are in fact listening and are perhaps sympathetic with what is being said here?
Well, all I'm going to say is that there's a process that if anybody who feels that a non-renewal is unfair, there's a process that unfolds at that point. It has a number of steps to it. It's not my place to discuss that here publicly. That's really for the employee to discuss with the folks who advocate or whoever it is. And it's really not appropriate for me to go into any more detail than that.
But it sounds like the superintendent makes the decision, and any board member, say Ms. Scotto, could make a motion to ask for the support of, hey, Dr. Mosdell. The board should show that they support these students and they support Dr. Mosdell. Yes, it won't be binding. It's ultimately up to the superintendent, but any board member would be,
Excuse me. We're in the public comment portion of public session of our business meeting.
Mr.
The public
President.
has the right to make their comments. You've all made their comments, and I would urge you to understand as the board attorney said, of the process. And again, I will say that you have the right to make comments, but we cannot discuss personal matters in this public session. And I will leave it at that.
Mr. President, if you may, let me just say this. First, to my students. I'm an educator and a former law enforcement officer because I just retired. Let me just say to all of you, I am so proud of all of you for utilizing your voice. Today, you really just sort of reinforced and confirmed that it's really a new day. It's really a new world. Because many of us that sit here, I'm a little older, came from a generation where children would sit in their place and would only speak when spoken to. And all of us here have sort of been held down for so long that we're now finding opportunities to be your authentic selves. And when I say like authentic, what I'm really saying is that people have the ability to accept people for who they are, just as they are. And I know right here, personally, as a black man, I've experienced the years, hundreds of years, of just trying to be acknowledged and being accepted and going through those emotions, first being the N-word and then being Negro and then being black and then colored, to even still not being acknowledged and accepted today. So I'm very proud of the students. I want to speak to the students for that, using that voice. And I can't speak for the whole board, I really want to applaud you for being your authentic selves. And anyone that supports someone being their authentic selves, I support that. Now, with that being said, being the law enforcement part of it, I also understand there's rules and procedures. And as you heard me mention earlier to Dr. Gray, there has to be evidence, and it has to be something that backs and supports whatever you say. Now, this sort of seems sort of premature, and that's why I'm so glad you kind of explained the process. And again, you explained that the employee has a process. That's why board members can't really speak upon it. There's a process that has to be filed. And I'm glad you sort of mentioned that earlier. It's about a process and to be there, and you explained that process. But I encourage you to continue to use those voices, because that's how change comes about. It comes about having conversations, the difficult conversations. And it may not be accepted. I, for one, have been through that. I've been through where people try to silence you. I've been through that. I know that's process. But I still had to prove that process. All right, so I encourage you again, children, be there. I love educators. I don't know you, ma'am. I was actually surprised you knew my son's name. I'm going to go home and like, yo, do you know this person? Because you mentioned his name. And that was 4 years ago. So I don't know that process. But again, and I encourage all the members here, let's find the process, because this is sort of really difficult. I actually asked Mr. McLaughlin in there, I said, yo, you kind of understand this? Like, do we know? He's like, I thought you know. We were kind of like, we got to get to understanding of where this goes and how this goes. And that's part of education, educating the public, educating the children. I think Dr. Gray mentioned earlier, we're opening an avenue of voices to be heard. But you always can't get what you want. There is a process. There are limitations. I don't know what those limitations are. And I love that voice you're saying. Is this there? I don't know. I don't know what it is.
So where is the point in the process where the voices of the students, the teachers, and the community can actually reshape a bad decision and reverse a bad decision? Because that's what we're trying to get to here. Where's that point in the process? How do we get all of these voices to shift a bad decision? Because that's ultimately what we all have a common interest in.
I would ask that, remember, this is a public comment section, and you yourself can Google the process for, but I would like for someone to make a motion to close the public session.
I believe Mr. Laughlin did.
Was the motion out?
There's a motion on the
I have a
table.
question, I'm
There's
sorry,
one second.
regarding the process and the protocols, like, I didn't discover this was an issue until I saw it on social media. Like, this wasn't really communicated. I'm wondering what's different from every other situation where you had an issue with like a staff member, where we spent like months investigating, and they've done objectively worse. Like, I'm just confused, like, what is the protocol? Why is this situation different? I just feel like we were left out in the dark on this decision, and I know it's not my decision to make, but we usually have those discussions. I'm just wondering why this is different.
Board Member Zoe, there are protections for untenured New Jersey teachers, and there are published processes. We are following the bounds of those processes that we are, without getting into any of the details. When we opened this up for public session, we mentioned that. So I would ask again for a motion to close.
I'd like to have.
Ed, is there a
It would
second?
need a second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Nay, because
Any opposed?
I oppose for a simple fact. Again, public session, I get that. I get it. There's certain things you can't talk to, but that's why we have the professionals. I have a board attorney, I have a superintendent.
Education.
I don't know the process. Okay, and I was, again, instructed, we're here. So if there's a process, and I love Mr. Rubin's process, that's correct, because we cannot talk about an individual. Please. So if there is a process,
What I can say is that,
Thank you.
again, it's not my place to give the employee legal advice.
correct.
And certainly not in a public forum like this. I could certainly give the board legal advice. I give my legal advice in private. So if the board wants to have a discussion, an attorney-client consultation from me about my legal advice on what the process is, we can have that discussion back there. We're not going to talk about the employee.
Right.
But that's a private session discussion. If the board wants to have a closed session where I can explain a little bit more detail of how that works, fine. As I said, I've got a lot of respect for the New Jersey Education Association. I wish I had their resources, to be quite honest with you. I can assure you that.
We pay a lot of dues.
I can assure you that the employee, if she's talking to her representatives, has had the process explained to her. And if and when she invokes that process, there's a process that will unfold. So that's all I'm prepared to say in public. If we want to discuss in private a little bit more detail what that process is, happy to have that discussion. But we're not going to talk about the employee.
I'd like to make a motion to reconvene an exec to get a clearer understanding, with no action being taken clearly. Because I don't think anyone really knows the process.
We can do that now or after we finish our business meeting.
I think we
Well,
should do
we
it
have
after
a
we
motion.
finish our
After we finish,
business
yes, of
meeting.
course.
We have a motion on the floor to close.
We did.
If it passed,
So you want to make your motion? You might.
yeah, I want to make the motion
Okay.
once it. after
So we
this
had a
passed.
motion to close public comment. I only heard one nay. Okay. You continue, and Mr. Johnson, you're free to make your motion subsequently.
I subsequently like to make a
No,
motion.
at the time you want to do it.
Okay.
At the end.
Okay, yes, sir. Okay. So we just let them know, that concludes our public session.
Yeah.
So that concludes the public comment section, and we will move on in the business agenda to item 13, which is planning and operations.